The purple-blue canopy of Aurelius jungle swayed violently as the escape pod tore through its dense layers. Metal screeched against massive branches, sending vibrant avian creatures scattering into the vermilion sky. Inside, the rapidly descending craft, Reconnaissance Sergeant Ryan Blackwood gripped the manual controls, his knuckles white with tension. The emergency landing systems had failed spectacularly, leaving only his training between survival and becoming another statistic in the Federation's exploration casualties. Mayday, Mayday. This is RS-2 Westfontein Sergeant Ryan Blackwood. Pod systems, critical implementing emergency landing protocols in uncharted section of Aurelius jungle. Coordinates transmitting. Requesting immediate extraction. His voice remained steady, despite the chaos of alarms blaring across the cramped cabin. The communication system crackled with static before dying completely as the pod slammed through another layer of foliage. The impact came suddenly, a bone-jarring crash followed by the hiss of hydraulics and the pop of emergency seals releasing. Ryan hung suspended in his harness, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. Through the cracked viewport, alien sunlight filtered in strange patterns, casting the interior in a dreamlike quality. He wasn't dead. Not yet, anyway. Miles above, hidden among dense purple fronds of a massive tree, Neri watched the strange metal object tear through her forest home. Her amber eyes, narrowed pupils contracting to slits as she observed with the stillness of a hunter. The Aurelians had watched the Sky People's vessels for many cycles, now their noisy machines disturbing the harmony of the jungle. This one was smaller than the others, and unlike the large crafts that hovered at the jungle's edge, this one had crashed deep within forbidden territory. Her six-fingered hand tightened around the living wood of her staff, the bioluminescent crystals embedded within pulsing in response to her agitation. The Council of Elders had strict protocols about the Sky People: observe, but do not engage. They were dangerous, destructive like the poachers who sometimes infiltrated their lands. But curiosity burned within Neri as strongly as caution. When the crumpled hatch of the vessel finally opened and a figure stumbled out, she slipped silently to a lower branch for a better view. The sky person was male, judging by build, and injured. Fresh blood red, unlike the purple-tinged blood of her people, stained his forehead and the strange uniform he wore. Despite his obvious disorientation, he moved with purpose, immediately securing the area and retrieving equipment from his damaged craft. Ryan checked his emergency beacon, cursing softly, when he found the transmitter damaged. He could repair it given time and the right tools, but that meant surviving long enough in this alien wilderness. His training kicked in: automatically secure shelter, find water, assess threats. The Federation briefing on Aurelius had been frustratingly incomplete. The indigenous humanoid species, the Aurelians, were notoriously reclusive, and contact had been minimal, despite months of diplomatic overtures. What the briefing had been very clear about, however, were the apex predators of this world, massive cat-like creatures the scientists had dubbed ferocious for their temperament. Ryan checked his service pistol standard issue with tranquilizer rounds and secured it to his hip. The Federation had strict protocols about lethal force on newly contacted worlds, but self-defense was always permitted. "Hello, anyone receiving?" He tried his personal communicator, but received only static in return. The dense electromagnetic fields of the Aurelius jungle were infamous for disrupting communications. Ryan sighed, gathering what supplies had survived the crash and looking for suitable shelter. The sudden cracking of branches, too heavy to be wind, froze him in place. Slowly, he turned toward the sound, his hand hovering near his weapon. Through the iridescent undergrowth, a pair of glowing eyes the size of dinner plates stared back at him. A low rumble vibrated the very air around him. Ferocious. The creature emerged partially from the foliage, revealing a sleek, muscular form covered in scales that shifted color from deep purple to midnight blue as it moved. larger than Earth's largest tigers with 6 limbs and a jaw that could easily snap a human in half. It regarded Ryan with predatory intensity. Above them, both Neri watched with bated breath. The Sky Person had encountered one of the forest guardians, much sooner than she anticipated. His death would be swift. She had seen these creatures tear apart the poachers, foolish enough to hunt in their territory. Yet, instead of drawing his weapon, the Sky Person did something unexpected. Ryan knew shooting would only anger the creature. Federation zoologists theorized these predators were highly intelligent, possibly even sentient. Slowly, deliberately, he knelt and reached into his survival pack. The ferocious growled, taking a step forward, but Ryan remained calm. His hand emerged with his emergency fire starter. With practiced movements, he created a small, controlled flame on the ground between them. The ferocious immediately backed away, its rumbling growing louder. Ryan maintained eye contact, but kept his posture submissive. Fire was the universal language of respect across countless worlds. The power to create and destroy used instead as a boundary. "I mean no harm," he said softly, knowing the creature wouldn't understand his words, but might respond to his tone. "This is your territory. I acknowledge that." To Neri's astonishment, the ferocious remained at a distance, watching the flame with obvious wariness, but making no move to attack. After several tense minutes, it backed further away before disappearing into the jungle, leaving Ryan alone, but unharmed. The Sky Person extinguished the flame carefully, his shoulders slumping with relief once the predator had gone. Neri found herself leaning forward, fascinated. She had never seen a ferocious spare any outsider. The creatures were sacred to her people, believed to judge the hearts of those who entered their domain. The fact that this Sky Person had been deemed worthy of life was significant. Ryan spent the remaining daylight establishing a rudimentary camp near his crashed pod. He set up perimeter alarms with what functioning tech remained and began cataloging the local flora. If he was going to survive until rescue, he needed to understand what might be edible or useful in this environment. His Federation training had included extensive xenobotany, though Aurelius remained largely unstudied outside the established contact zones. As darkness fell, bringing with it a spectacular display of bioluminescence. Throughout the jungle, Ryan documented his observations in a portable datapad that had survived the crash. Day 1 on Aurelius, he dictated quietly. Encountered apex predator designation ferocious, approximately 1400 hours local time. Traditional fire boundary technique, successful supporting theories of their higher intelligence. Specimen displayed caution, rather than aggression when presented with controlled flame. Pod beacon damaged, but salvageable. Estimate 3 to 4 days repair time with available tools. Surrounding flora include species similar to those documented in explored regions, though variations in coloration and size suggest unique adaptations to this deeper jungle environment. He paused, looking up at the alien sky visible through gaps in the canopy. Environmental conditions surprisingly hospitable, despite stronger gravity. Oxygen levels slightly higher than Earth standard, explaining the megafauna development. Detected water source approximately 500 meters east of crash site. Will investigate tomorrow. End log. Ryan wasn't aware that every word was being listened to with intense interest. Neri had moved closer during his hours of work, her natural camouflage abilities, the subtle shifting of her skin's pigmentation, to match her surroundings, keeping her hidden among the foliage. The Sky Person's methodical approach and obvious respect for his environment contradicted everything she had been taught about these invaders. The elders spoke of destruction and disrespect, yet this one carefully collected plant samples without damaging the living organisms meticulously documented rather than exploited. Most intriguing of all, he had been spared by a ferocious assign that could not be ignored. Dawn on Aurelius brought a symphony of alien wildlife sounds and a rainbow of colors as the jungle awakened. Ryan had slept fitfully the unfamiliar noises and his own tension keeping him alert. He checked his perimeter sensors, Nothing larger than small forest creatures had approached during the night. The fact that the ferocious hadn't returned was both a relief and puzzling. Federation research suggested they were territorial and persistent. After a breakfast of emergency rations, Ryan set out to find the water source his scanner had detected. Moving through the dense undergrowth required careful navigation. Some plants retracted violently when touched, while others released clouds of spores. He collected samples when safe, building his personal database of the local environment. The water source turned out to be a small tributary of what must be a larger river system. Crystal clear and flowing over stones that seemed to pulse with inner light, it was unlike any river Ryan had seen on dozens of surveyed worlds. He tested the water carefully with his portable analyzer before determining it was safe for human consumption. As Ryan filled his canteens, a sound artificial and discordant against the natural symphony of the jungle caught his attention. He froze, listening intently. It came again, the unmistakable whine of repulsor engines, but not the heavy-duty kind used by Federation ships. These were lighter, faster, the kind favored by independent operators, smugglers, poachers. The Federation had documented illegal harvesting operations on Aurelis, specifically targeting the ferocious for their color-shifting scales and bizarre biological components that fetched astronomical prices on the black market. Ryan's jaw tightened. His mission parameters might be reconnaissance, but Federation law was clear about intervention when witnessing environmental crimes. He secured his equipment and moved silently through the jungle toward the sound. Years of stealth training allowed him to navigate without disturbing the environment, though the higher gravity made his movements more laborious than they would be on Earth or standard colonies. Neri had been following the sky person since dawn, her curiosity growing with each careful, respectful interaction he had with her forest home. When the sound of the poacher's ship reached them, she had tensed, immediately recognizing the threat. These were the true enemies, the ones who slaughtered the sacred guardians for profit. She expected the sky person to ignore the intrusion or perhaps join with the others of his kind. Instead, he moved toward the danger with obvious intent. Intrigued, she shadowed him moving through the canopy with the grace her people were known for. Ryan reached a small clearing where the jungle had been brutally cut away to make room for a sleek, unmarked transport vessel. 3 men in utilitarian gear were unloading equipment cages, stun rifles, and what appeared to be scanning devices designed to track large life forms. Classic poaching setup. He documented everything with his datapad's camera function. Evidence for Federation enforcement, though he doubted he'd be able to transmit it anytime soon. As he watched the men activated what appeared to be a trap mechanism, a device that emitted high-frequency sounds that, according to their animated discussion, would attract and disorient the ferocious. Ethical considerations aside, Ryan knew, antagonizing the apex predator of an ecosystem, this complex was ecologically disastrous. He needed to sabotage their operation somehow, preferably without revealing himself. 3 armed poachers against 1 stranded reconnaissance officer weren't odds he liked. The decision was taken from his hands when a pained roar echoed through the jungle. The poachers grinned at each other, grabbing their weapons and heading toward the sound. Ryan followed at a distance, his conscience not allowing him to simply observe. What he found made his blood boil. A juvenile ferocious, smaller than the adult he'd encountered, but still the size of a lioness, was thrashing in an energy net trap. The creature's scales flashed in distress patterns, shifting rapidly between colors as it struggled. Nearby, partially concealed in dense undergrowth, a much larger ferocious, presumably the mother paced in obvious agitation, prevented from helping its offspring by the painful barrier of the energy field. The poachers approached confidently, stun rifles raised. "Perfect specimen," one of them said, voice carrying in the strange acoustics of the jungle. "Juvenile scales are more pliable, triple the market value." "Take the mother too," another replied. "Full breeding pair will set us up for life." Ryan had seen enough. Federation protocols be damned, he couldn't stand by while these men destroyed a family unit of potentially sentient creatures. He drew his service pistol, aimed carefully, and fired a tranquilizer round at the nearest poacher. The man dropped immediately, the powerful sedative taking effect before he even realized he'd been hit. The other two spun around, weapons raised. Federation, one spat. Thought your kind stayed in the safe zones. Put down your weapons, Ryan ordered, stepping into view with his pistol trained on them. You're in violation of the Interstellar Conservation Act, Section 27B, prohibiting the hunting of potentially sentient species. The poachers exchanged glances, then opened fire. Ryan dove for cover behind massive tree roots, cursing as energy bolts sizzled past him. Unlike his tranquilizer rounds, their weapons were lethal, legal in some sectors, for self-defense against dangerous wildlife, but clearly being misused here. The firefight that ensued was brief, but intense. Ryan managed to hit the second poacher with another tranquilizer round, but the third was more cautious, laying down suppressing fire while retreating toward their ship. The energy net trapping the juvenile ferocious remained active, the creature's distress growing more pronounced. Ryan needed to reach the control device to deactivate it, but doing so would expose him to the remaining poacher's fire. As he calculated his options, something unexpected happened. A slender figure dropped from the canopy above, landing between the poacher's position and the trapped ferocious. For a moment, Ryan thought it was another poacher, but the six-fingered hands and fluid grace marked this newcomer as something else entirely. An Aurelian, the first he'd seen up close. The female, at least Ryan assumed female from the build, moved with astonishing speed toward the device controlling the energy net. The poacher fired at her, but she seemed to anticipate each shot, her body twisting with inhuman flexibility to avoid the energy bolts. With a swift strike of her staff, she shattered the control mechanism. The energy net flickered and died. The juvenile ferocious immediately bounded to its mother, who nuzzled it briefly before turning blazing eyes toward the remaining poacher. The man's face drained of color as he realized the predicament he was in. Ryan emerged from cover, his weapon still trained on the poacher. "I'd run if I were you," he advised grimly. The man didn't need to be told twice. He turned and sprinted toward their ship, the mother ferocious, letting out a thunderous roar before giving chase. The Aurelian female watched impassively, then turned to face Ryan directly for the first time. She was humanoid, but unmistakably alien, tall and willowy, with skin that shifted subtly to match the dappled light of the jungle. Her eyes were large and amber pupils vertical like a cat's, and her features had an angular elegance to them. She wore what appeared to be living fabric woven from plants that still maintained their vibrant colors and seemed to move slightly with her breathing. They regarded each other in silence for a long moment. Ryan slowly holstered his weapon, showing he meant no threat. He knew enough about first contact protocols to recognize the delicacy of this moment. "Thank you," he said, simply gesturing toward the now free juvenile ferocious, who watched them warily from a safer distance. The Aurelian tilted her head, studying him. When she spoke, her voice had a musical quality, the words in heavily accented but understandable English. "You protect what is not yours to protect. Why?" Ryan considered her question carefully. "Because it was the right thing to do. Those men would have taken this creature from its home, its family, for profit. Yet you are Sky Person. Your kind takes, destroys." "Some do," Ryan acknowledged. "But not all of us. My people, the Federation, seek knowledge and understanding. We wish to learn from worlds like yours, not exploit them." She seemed to consider this, her expressive eyes never leaving his face. "I am Neri," she finally said, "Forest Guardian of the Eastern Reaches. Ryan Blackwood, Reconnaissance Sergeant, Earth Federation." The juvenile ferocious made a chirping sound, drawing their attention. The mother had returned blood on her muzzle, suggesting the poacher hadn't made it to his ship in time. She approached cautiously, her massive form dwarfing both humanoids. To Ryan's astonishment, Neri raised her hand toward the creature in what appeared to be a greeting. The ferocious lowered its massive head, allowing her to touch the scaled ridge above its eyes. The Guardians judge the heart, Neri explained, seeing his surprise. They know who respects the forest and who seeks to harm it. She gestured for Ryan to approach. She will allow your touch now. You have proven worthy. Ryan hesitated, then slowly extended his hand as Neri had done. The ferocious regarded him with intelligent eyes, before pressing its massive head against his palm. The scales were warm and surprisingly smooth, vibrating slightly under his touch as they shifted colors in mesmerizing patterns. "I've never seen anything like this," he murmured. "Our scientists theorize they might be sentient, but this—" "They are wiser than many who walk on two legs," Neri replied. "They do not speak as we do, but they understand more than your science can measure." The moment was interrupted by the sound of more voices approaching the other poachers, regaining consciousness. The mother ferocious growled, positioning herself between her juvenile and the potential threat. "We must disable their vessel," Ryan said urgently. "If they escape, they'll just return with more men." Neri nodded in agreement. "I know how to reach their ship more quickly. Follow." Without waiting for his response, she moved into the dense undergrowth, her form almost disappearing as her skin adapted to the surroundings. Ryan followed as best he could, impressed by her knowledge of hidden paths through the seemingly impenetrable jungle. They reached the poacher's ship before the disoriented men could return. Ryan immediately set to work examining the vessel's external systems, while Neri watched with open curiosity. "Your metal birds are strange to me," she commented. "How do you prevent them from consuming the life of the forest?" Ryan paused, recognizing the deeper question behind her words. "The Federation has strict environmental protocols for all our technology. This ship, though," he gestured to the poacher's vessel, "is different. They don't care about the damage they cause." He located the main propulsion manifold and considered his options. Permanently disabling the ship would strand the poachers here, potentially leading to more conflict or ecological damage as they tried to survive. A temporary sabotage would be better. "Do you know plants that produce strong dyes or sticky substances?" he asked Neri. Her expression brightened with understanding. "The purple heartleaf. Its juice stains for many cycles and becomes like tree sap when heated." "Perfect. And anything with tough fibers?" Neri disappeared briefly into the jungle, returning with several plants, one with deep purple leaves that oozed thick liquid when crushed, and another with long, incredibly strong, fibrous stems. Working together, they created a mixture that Ryan applied to critical engine components. When the engines fired, the mixture would harden instantly, requiring hours of careful cleaning to restore functionality. For good measure, he also used the tough fibers to jam certain control mechanisms, ensuring the ship would be grounded long enough for them to escape and potentially signal for help. "They will be angry," Neri observed, as they completed their sabotage. "Very," Ryan agreed with a grim smile. "But alive, which is more than they deserve after what they tried to do." A shout from the jungle's edge announced the poacher's return. Ryan and Neri quickly retreated into the dense foliage, the Aurelians' natural camouflage, helping to conceal them both as they made their escape. The jungle darkened rapidly as they put distance between themselves and the poacher's camp. Aurelius had shorter days than Earth, and nightfall came with startling swiftness. The bioluminescent flora activated in sequence, creating pathways of light through the undergrowth. "We must reach safer ground before full dark," Neri explained, as she led Ryan through increasingly unfamiliar terrain. "The night hunters will emerge soon." Ryan checked his portable scanner. "My camp is too far to reach before nightfall. Do you have shelter nearby?" Neri hesitated, clearly conflicted. "I cannot take you to my village. The elders forbid outsiders." "I understand," Ryan assured her. "I'm not asking to intrude on your people, just somewhere safe for the night." After a moment's consideration, she nodded decisively. "There is a guardian cave not far from here. If the ferocious have truly accepted you, we will be safe there." The cave Neri led him to was actually a massive hollow within the trunk of an ancient tree, its interior lined with phosphorescent fungi, that bathed the space in soft blue light. The entrance was partially hidden by hanging vines, providing excellent concealment from anyone passing by. Ferocious used these places to birth their young, Neri explained, as they settled inside. This one has been empty for many cycles. We are fortunate. Ryan set up his portable scanner at the entrance, configuring it to alert them to any approach. The small space was surprisingly comfortable, the natural contours of the tree forming shelves and alcoves. He offered Neri some of his emergency rations, which she examined with amused curiosity before tentatively tasting. "Strange," she commented after sampling a protein bar. "Your food has no life in it." "Preserved for long journeys," Ryan explained. "Not particularly delicious, but nutritious." Neri reached into a pouch at her waist and offered him something in return, a pale purple fruit with a delicate aroma. "This is safe for your kind. Our scientists have exchanged food knowledge with your people at the border stations." Ryan accepted gratefully, finding the fruit surprisingly sweet and refreshing. As they shared this impromptu meal, the tension between them gradually eased curiosity, overtaking caution. "Your people have been watching us," Ryan observed. "You spoke English. You know about the Federation." Neri nodded, her expression growing serious. "For 3 cycles of the Great Moon, your kind has established outposts at our borders. The elders debate endlessly, while the young ones grow curious. I was assigned to observe, to learn your ways without being seen." "You're very good at it," Ryan admitted. "I had no idea I was being watched." A smile flashed across her alien features. "You were more observant than most sky people, always looking up as if you sensed something." "Military training," he explained. "Always check high ground for potential threats." "Yet when you saw the ferocious, you did not attack," she noted. "You used fire as boundary, showing respect." Ryan leaned back against the curved wall of their shelter. "On my world long ago, our ancestors used fire to establish boundaries with wild predators. It became part of our instinctual knowledge, fire, as both protection and respect." "Our legends speak of the first flame," Neri said softly. "When the ancient ones taught our people to create, rather than only preserve, it changed everything." She studied him with renewed interest. "Perhaps our peoples are not so different in their beginnings." Their conversation continued deep into the night, each sharing carefully selected knowledge about their respective cultures. Ryan was mindful of first contact protocols, avoiding technology details that might disrupt Aurelian development, while Neri clearly measured her words with similar caution. What emerged, however, was a genuine connection, 2 individuals from vastly different worlds, finding common ground in their respect for life and balanced ecosystems. As the bioluminescent light dimmed, indicating the deepest part of the night cycle, Ryan's scanner suddenly beeped in warning. He checked the display, his expression hardening. "The poachers have found a way to track us," he reported grimly. "Probably using biological traces from the juvenile ferocious. They're moving this way, 3 of them armed." Neri rose fluidly to her feet. "We must move deeper into the tangleweb forest. Even guardians fear those depths." They gathered their supplies quickly, leaving the safety of the tree hollow for the increasingly dense jungle beyond. The vegetation changed subtly as they progressed, the plants growing more interconnected vines and roots, forming natural lattices that required careful navigation. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew, branches breaking carelessly, occasional muffled curses, and the persistent beep of tracking equipment. The poachers had abandoned stealth in favor of speed, clearly determined to catch the ones who had sabotaged their operation. "They're gaining," Ryan warned, checking his scanner again. "And we're heading into an area with multiple large life signs." "The deep tangle," Neri confirmed grimly. "Territory of the eldest guardians. Our only hope is that they judge us more worthy than our pursuers." The jungle seemed to close in around them, the bioluminescent plants growing scarcer, leaving them in near darkness. Ryan activated a small light on his wrist unit, keeping it dimmed to avoid giving away their position too obviously. The sound of energy weapons discharging behind them accelerated their pace. The poachers were firing indiscriminately into the jungle, either hoping for a lucky hit or simply venting their frustration. "Fools," Neri hissed. "They will attract every predator within hearing." As if summoned by her words, a deep, rumbling growl emanated from somewhere ahead of them. Then another answered from their left, a third from the right. They had run directly into a gathering of ferocious. Ryan and Neri froze his light, revealing at least 5 of the massive predators surrounding them in a loose circle. These creatures were larger than the ones they had encountered earlier, their scales darker and patterns more complex. Ancient ones, as Neri had described. "Do not move," she whispered. "Do not show fear." Ryan stood perfectly still, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to run. The largest of the ferocious, a scarred behemoth with scales that shifted between deepest purple and obsidian, approached them with deliberate steps. Its eyes, glowing with bioluminescence, fixed on Ryan with unnerving intelligence. Neri slowly raised her hand in the greeting gesture she had used earlier, speaking in her native language a flowing series of sounds, unlike any human tongue. The massive creature paused, then lowered its head to inspect her outstretched hand. After what seemed an eternity, it turned its attention to Ryan. He mirrored Neri's gesture, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The ferocious rumbled deep in its chest, the sound vibrating through Ryan's entire body. "It remembers the fire boundary," Neri translated softly. "It knows you chose respect over power." Before Ryan could respond, the crashing sounds of pursuit grew louder. The poachers were nearly upon them. The ferocious raised its massive head, nostrils flaring as it caught the scent of the newcomers. "They will attack the poachers," Ryan realized. "We could use this." Neri nodded in understanding. "If we can guide the guardians." Ryan quickly outlined his plan. The poachers were following their biotraces. If they moved carefully through the ferocious gathering, maintaining the trust they had established, they could position the predators between themselves and their pursuers. With exquisite caution, they began navigating through the loose circle of massive predators. Each ferocious watched them pass with alert eyes, but made no move to attack. Ryan kept his movement steady and respectful, following Neri's lead, as she occasionally made soft vocalizations that seemed to reassure the creatures. They had nearly cleared the gathering when the first poacher burst into the small clearing. The man froze his weapon, dropping slightly in shock as he took in the scene. Multiple apex predators, the very creatures they had been hunting, gathered in one place. The other poachers emerged behind him, equally stunned by what they encountered. For a crucial moment, no one moved. Then one of the poachers raised his weapon. The jungle exploded into chaos. The ferocious launched themselves toward the threat with terrifying speed, their roars deafening in the confined space. The poachers opened fire energy bolts, illuminating the darkness in strobing flashes that made the battle scene even more nightmarish. Ryan grabbed Neri's arm, pulling her away from the conflict. "Now's our chance. We need to get to higher ground and activate an emergency signal." They fled through the jungle as the sounds of combat raged behind them. One poacher's scream cut off abruptly, while energy weapons continued to discharge at a frantic pace. The ferocious roars never diminished, suggesting the predators were more than holding their own against the armed intruders. Ryan and Neri emerged from the densest part of the jungle, onto a rocky outcropping that provided a view of the canopy stretching for miles. Dawn was approaching, the first hints of Aurelius's primary sun lighting the horizon. "My people will be searching by air," Ryan explained, as he worked to modify his damaged emergency beacon. "But the jungle canopy blocks most scans. We need to boost this signal and get it above the trees." Neri watched him work with undisguised fascination. "Your small magics are impressive," she commented, observing, as he rewired delicate components. "Not magic," Ryan corrected gently. "Technology. Tools we've developed over thousands of years. Tools that often become weapons." She noted, her tone carrying no judgment, merely observation. Ryan couldn't argue with her assessment. "Yes, the capacity to create is always matched by the capacity to destroy. The choice is what matters." From the jungle below, The sounds of conflict had dimmed to occasional growls and the sporadic discharge of an energy weapon. At least one poacher had survived the initial attack, though for how long remained uncertain. The Guardians will not pursue beyond their territory, Neri assured him. The sky hunters who survive will flee to their metal bird only to find it refuses to fly. Ryan smiled grimly at that. Small justice for what they attempted. He made a final adjustment to the beacon. There. Now we need height. That massive tree, can we climb it? Neri looked where he pointed at a towering giant that rose above the surrounding canopy. Yes, but light comes quickly now. We must hurry before the poachers regroup. The climb was arduous even with Neri's expert guidance. The higher gravity of Aurelis made each movement more demanding for Ryan, though his military training served him well. Neri moved with the natural grace of her species, occasionally reaching back to offer assistance at difficult passages. They reached a suitable height as full daylight spread across the jungle. The view was breathtaking, endless waves of purple-blue canopy stretching to distant mountains, interrupted only by the occasional massive trunk of the giant trees that formed the jungle's framework. Ryan secured the modified beacon to the highest stable branch, activating it with a series of commands. The device hummed to life, its signal now strong enough to penetrate the electromagnetic interference of the jungle. "How long until your people come?" Neri asked, settling beside him on the broad branch. "Depends on who picks up the signal first. Few hours, maybe a day." He gestured toward the jungle below. "Your village isn't far from here." She pointed toward the east, where a subtle change in the canopy coloration might indicate a clearing. "Half a day's journey. The elders will have noticed my absence by now." "Will you be in trouble for helping me?" Neri's expression was complicated, a mixture of concern and defiance. "Perhaps. But what I have learned cannot be unlearned. The Guardians accepted you, that carries weight among my people." They descended the tree more carefully than they had climbed it, watchful for any sign of the surviving poachers. The jungle had returned to its normal rhythm of sounds, suggesting immediate danger had passed. Still, they remained vigilant as they made their way back toward Ryan's crash site to retrieve essential supplies. The journey gave them more time to talk their initial wariness, now replaced by genuine curiosity about each other's worlds. Ryan explained Earth's long journey from environmental exploitation to the balanced approach the Federation now mandated, while Neri described the Aurelian philosophy of symbiotic existence with their ecosystem. "Your people learned the hard way," she observed, after Ryan described Earth's climate recovery efforts. "Ours never separated ourselves from the living world enough to forget our dependence on it." "Different evolutionary paths," Ryan suggested. "Humans developed tools to overcome environmental limitations. It made us adaptable, but also destructive." "Until you remembered you are part of the greater life, not masters of it," Neri concluded. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by the whine of approaching engines, but not the lighter sound of the poacher's vessel. This was the deeper, more powerful resonance of Federation shuttlecraft. "That was fast," Ryan remarked, checking his chrono. "Someone was already in the area." They reached a small clearing where the canopy was thin enough for a shuttle to maneuver. Ryan activated his personal communicator, which now functioned within shorter ranges. "This is Reconnaissance Sergeant Ryan Blackwood to approaching Federation vessel. I have a civilian contact situation and request diplomatic protocols." The response was immediate. "Sergeant Blackwood, this is Captain Reyes aboard the survey vessel Horizon. We've been searching since your pod went offline. Diplomatic team standing by. Transmit landing coordinates." Ryan looked to Neri, who had tensed at the exchange. "These are my people," he explained gently. "They'll want to meet you, but they'll respect your boundaries. I promise." She studied his face, then nodded once. "I trust you, Sky Person, but I cannot speak for all Aurelians." "Then we'll start with just you and me," Ryan decided, transmitting coordinates for the landing. The Federation shuttle was sleek and efficient, designed for minimal environmental impact as it descended through the gap in the canopy. It touched down with barely a disturbance to the surrounding vegetation, its engines cycling down to silence almost immediately. The hatch opened to reveal Captain Reyes, a stern-faced woman, whose expression softened momentarily at the sight of Ryan, before registering Neri with professional interest. Behind her stood two Federation diplomats in the distinctive blue uniforms of the First Contact Division. Sergeant Reyes acknowledged with a nod. "Your report mentioned poachers." "3 of them, Captain. Their ship is disabled, but they're still at large in the jungle. They were hunting the indigenous apex predators." The captain's expression hardened again. "We'll handle them." She turned her attention to Neri, switching seamlessly into formal first contact mode. "I am Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Federation. On behalf of our people, I extend greetings and respect to yours." Neri straightened to her full height, nearly a head taller than the human woman. With unexpected formality, she responded, "I am Neri, Forest Guardian of the Eastern Reaches. I cannot speak for all Aurelians, but I offer personal welcome." The diplomats exchanged glances, clearly pleased by this development. One stepped forward, a middle-aged man with kind eyes. "This is an unprecedented opportunity for dialogue. The Council of Elders has been reluctant to engage beyond basic communication at the border stations. Because you bring machines that tear the sky," Neri stated bluntly. "But this one," she gestured to Ryan, "has shown respect for our ways. The Forest Guardians have judged him worthy." Captain Reyes raised an eyebrow at Ryan, who shrugged slightly. "It's a long story, Captain." "I look forward to your full report," she replied dryly. "In the meantime, we should address the poacher situation. Did you gather any evidence of their activities?" Ryan produced his datapad, transferring the images and recordings he had collected. They were specifically targeting juveniles for their scales, attempted to trap a mother-child pair. The diplomats looked troubled by this information. "The Interstellar Conservation Treaty explicitly prohibits hunting potentially sentient species," one noted. "With this evidence, we can expand patrols in this sector." Neri had been watching this exchange with interest. "Your laws protect our guardians." "All potentially sentient life forms," the diplomat confirmed. "The ferocious qualify under multiple criteria." A subtle change came over Neri's posture, a relaxation that suggested this information carried significant weight. "This is good to know," she turned to Ryan. "I must return to my village now. The elders must hear what I have witnessed." Ryan felt a strange reluctance at the thought of her departure. Their brief time together had forged a connection he hadn't anticipated. "Will I see you again?" Neri's amber eyes held his for a long moment. "The path is open now. I will find you, Sky Person." Without further ceremony, she turned and disappeared into the jungle with astonishing speed, her form blending with the foliage until she was entirely gone from view. Captain Reyes cleared her throat. "Well, Sergeant Blackwood, it seems you've had quite the adventure. Let's get you back to base for debriefing." The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Ryan's detailed report on the ferocious and his interactions with Neri sparked intense interest among Federation xenobiologists and the diplomatic corps. The evidence against the poachers led to increased security measures throughout the sector, with dedicated conservation patrols established along known smuggling routes. 5 days after his rescue, Ryan was summoned to the commander's office at Outpost Theta, the Federation's primary base on the edge of Aurelian territory. Commander Walsh was a veteran of multiple first contact situations, his weathered face bearing the marks of decades serving on frontier worlds. "Sergeant Blackwood," he greeted Ryan, "your report has caused quite a stir in diplomatic circles." Sir Ryan stood at attention, uncertain whether this was praise or rebuke. "At ease, Sergeant," Walsh gestured to a chair. "What you may not know is that we've been attempting to establish meaningful dialogue with the Aurelians for over 2 years with minimal success. Their Council of Elders has been polite, but distant, restricting all contact to formal exchanges at border stations." He activated a holographic display, showing the vast Aurelius jungle, with Federation outposts, marked as small, blue dots along its perimeter. Yesterday, we received a message from the village of your Aurelian contact, Neri. The Council of Elders has requested a formal meeting not at the border, but at their sacred gathering place within the jungle. Ryan blinked in surprise. That's unexpected, sir. Indeed. Walsh studied him thoughtfully. They specifically requested your presence, Sergeant. It seems your respectful interaction with their forest guardians has made quite an impression. 3 days later, Ryan found himself aboard a small diplomatic shuttle, navigating carefully to coordinates provided by the Aurelian Council. Beside him sat Dr. Eliza Chen, the Federation's leading xenoanthropologist and a specialist in non-human cultural systems. This is unprecedented access, Dr. Chen remarked, reviewing her notes. The Aurelians have guarded their inner territories jealously since first contact. Whatever you did out there, Sergeant, it clearly shifted something fundamental in their approach to us. Ryan watched the jungle canopy passing below them. I just treated their world with the respect it deserves, Doctor. And I was fortunate enough to meet an Aurelian willing to look past her preconceptions. The shuttle descended toward a massive clearing, where the jungle had formed a natural amphitheater around a circle of towering stone monoliths. Dozens of Aurelians had gathered their slender forms, adorned with ceremonial garments that incorporated living plants and bioluminescent crystals. As they landed, Ryan immediately spotted Neri among the assembled Aurelians. She stood apart from the others, her posture suggesting a special role in the proceedings. When their eyes met, she inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. The diplomatic team disembarked with careful formality, following protocols established during the limited previous interactions. Ryan remained slightly behind Dr. Chen, observing the proceedings with professional interest, while searching the crowd for any sign of hostility. An elderly Aurelian stepped forward, his skin bearing the pale blue patterns that indicated advanced age among their species. I am Chief Thorin of the Eastern Forest Clan, he announced in perfect English. The Council of Elders welcomes the representatives of the Sky People to our sacred circle. Dr. Chen responded with the formal greetings, her pronunciation of several Aurelian terms clearly impressing the assembled elders. Protocol complete, Chief Thorin gestured toward Ryan. We have heard much of the one called Ryan Blackwood, who earned the trust of the forest guardians and protected their young. Ryan stepped forward at Dr. Chen's subtle nod. I am honored by your welcome, Chief Thorin. I meant only to show respect for the magnificent creatures who judge the hearts of those who enter their domain. A murmur of approval rippled through the gathered Aurelians. Chief Thorin's expression remained solemn, but his eyes carried a hint of warmth. For many cycles we have watched the Sky People with caution. Your machines tear the heavens. Your outposts change the land where they touch. We feared you would bring destruction to Aurelis, as some of your kind have brought to other worlds. He gestured toward Neri, who stepped forward to join him. Our forest guardian has shared a different vision, one of Sky People who respect boundaries, who protect rather than exploit, who seek understanding rather than dominance. Neri spoke for the first time, her voice carrying clearly in the natural acoustics of the stone circle. The Guardians have judged this one worthy, she stated, indicating Ryan. They allowed him near their young. They shared territory without bloodshed. These are signs we cannot ignore. Chief Thorin nodded gravely. And so the Council has decided. We will open formal dialogue with the Federation with conditions. He turned to Dr. Chen. Your outposts will remain at our borders, but we will establish a joint meeting place within our territory where knowledge may be shared. The implications were enormous. Dr. Chen maintained her diplomatic composure, but Ryan could see the excitement in her eyes. The Federation accepts these terms with gratitude, Chief Thorin. This represents a historic step forward for both our peoples. The formal ceremony continued for several hours, with ritual exchanges of symbolic gifts and declarations of peaceful intent from both sides. As the diplomatic team prepared to depart, Ryan found himself approached by Neri. You return to the sky soon, she asked, her amber eyes searching his face. My assignment here is complete, Ryan confirmed. I'll likely be reassigned to another reconnaissance mission. Something like disappointment flickered across her alien features. I see. Before Ryan could respond, Chief Thorin joined them. Sergeant Blackwood, he addressed Ryan formally. The Council has a proposal for you specifically. Ryan straightened, instantly alert. Sir, the joint meeting place will require representatives from both peoples who understand each other's ways. Neri has volunteered to represent the Aurelians. We would request that you consider serving as the Federation's representative. The offer was unexpected, but not unwelcome. Ryan glanced at Neri, whose expression remained carefully neutral, despite the obvious significance of the request. I would be honored, Ryan replied, though the decision isn't entirely mine to make. My superiors would need to approve such an assignment. Chief Thorin nodded in understanding. We have already discussed this possibility with your Dr. Chen. She believes your superiors will be receptive. Ryan couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. Then, pending official approval, I accept. The establishment of the joint outpost proceeded with remarkable efficiency over the following months. Located at the edge of the Eastern Forest Territory, the facility was designed with minimal environmental impact, incorporating living Aurelian architecture alongside Federation technology. Ryan found himself in the unique position of cultural liaison, working daily with Neri to bridge the considerable gaps between their people's perspectives. Their earlier connection deepened through this collaboration, professional respect evolving into genuine friendship and, eventually, something more. 6 months after the historic meeting at the Stone Circle, Ryan stood at the entrance to the outpost, watching the sunset paint Aurelius' sky in spectacular hues of magenta and gold. The distant calls of jungle creatures created a symphony he had come to find comforting rather than alien. Neri appeared beside him, moving with the silent grace that still occasionally startled him, despite months of familiarity. The Council's delegation departs tomorrow, she noted. Are your people prepared? Ryan nodded. Captain Reyes will present the formal conservation treaty. With the combined patrol's poaching incidents, have already decreased by 70%. A beginning, Neri acknowledged. She hesitated, then added, The elders have granted my request. Ryan turned to her curious. Neri had been unusually secretive about her recent meetings with the Council. What request? Instead of answering directly, she took his hand, a gesture of intimacy that had evolved between them, bridging their different cultural expressions of affection. In Aurelian tradition, life bonds must be blessed by both families. My clan has given their blessing. Have you spoken with yours? Ryan's heart skipped a beat as he understood her meaning. Their relationship had evolved cautiously, each step carefully considered, given the enormous cultural differences and biological complexities involved. I spoke with my parents via quantum communication last week. They're very curious about you. Yes. Neri's lips curved in the smile she had adopted from human expression. Then, we may proceed with the ceremony when you are ready. The elders have agreed to recognize our union as the first formal bond between our peoples. Ryan drew her closer, still marveling at how perfectly they fit together, despite their differences. I've been ready since that first day in the jungle when you helped me save those ferocious. The ceremony took place a month later, combining elements of both cultures in a celebration that many would later mark as the true beginning of Federation-Aurelian cooperation. Representatives from both worlds attended, including Ryan's parents, who had made the long journey from Earth to witness this unprecedented union. As was Aurelian custom, the ceremony was held in the natural cathedral of the jungle, beneath the canopy of a massive ancestor tree. Ryan wore a formal Federation uniform, modified with living Aurelian elements, while Neri was adorned in traditional Guardian garb that incorporated symbolic Federation patterns. Chief Thorin presided, his formal demeanor softened by genuine approval as he joined their hands with a binding cord woven from both Earth and Aurelian materials. What begins between two beings extends to two worlds, he intoned. May this union bring understanding where there was ignorance, cooperation, where there was suspicion, and love where there was fear. The witnesses from both species observed with varying degrees of comprehension, but universal recognition of the moment's significance. Among them, stationed at a respectful distance, a family of ferocious, watched with intelligent eyes, the mother and juvenile Ryan and Neri had saved, now accompanied by a new generation of cubs. As the binding cord was secured, sealing their union in the eyes of both cultures, Neri leaned close to Ryan, her voice meant for him alone. When new life comes from our bond, it will belong to both worlds, neither fully of the sky nor fully of the forest. Ryan's eyes widened with understanding. You mean? Her smile confirmed what her words suggested. The elders consulted with your scientists months ago to determine compatibility. Our child will be the first of a new beginning. As the ceremony concluded, and their assembled guests celebrated this union of worlds, Ryan gazed out at the jungle that had brought them together. Somewhere in the canopy, unseen observers would be watching the next generation of Aurelian guardians, learning that the Sky People were not to be feared, but understood. On the outpost's landing pad, Federation scientists and diplomats discussed new possibilities for cooperative research and cultural exchange. And at the edge of the gathering, the mother Ferocious watched over her cubs with the same protective instinct that had first shown Neri that this particular sky person could be trusted the universal language of respect, transcending the boundaries between species. 6 months later, as Neri's pregnancy progressed under the careful monitoring of both Aurelian healers and Federation doctors, the outpost had grown into a thriving center of cooperation. What had begun with a crashed pod and an encounter with an apex predator had blossomed into a model for peaceful coexistence that other Federation contact teams were now studying. Ryan stood at the edge of the clearing where he had first landed on this world, watching a juvenile Ferocious practicing its hunting skills under the watchful eye of its mother. The creature's scales rippled with patterns of excitement as it successfully pounced on a small, non-sentient prey animal, still documenting their behavior. Neri's voice came from behind him as she approached, one hand resting on the gentle swell of her abdomen. "They're magnificent," Ryan replied, turning to embrace her. Dr. Chen's latest paper on their communication patterns has been accepted by the Federation Xenobiology Council. Your people's knowledge combined with our analytical methods is revolutionizing how we understand intelligence. Neri leaned into his embrace, her amber eyes reflecting the dappled sunlight filtering through the canopy. The elders say our child will have a foot in each world, understanding both the sky and the forest. A bridge like the one we crossed together. Ryan placed his hand gently beside hers on her abdomen, feeling the subtle movement within. I never expected to find this when my pod crashed into your jungle. I was just trying to survive until rescue came. And I was simply observing the strange sky person who showed respect to our guardians, Neri replied with a soft laugh. The universe has paths we cannot see until we walk them. In the distance, a Federation shuttle descended toward the outpost, bringing new scientists eager to learn from the Aurelians. Nearby, a group of young Aurelians practiced English with Federation teachers in an outdoor classroom. Encircling the perimeter, a family of Ferocious kept watch, not as threats, but as guardians of the peace that had been established. The apex predators who had once judged Ryan worthy now accepted the growing settlement as part of their territory, a living testament to the trust that had begun when an alien girl had watched a human earn the respect of the jungle's most fearsome creatures. Our worlds are changing, Neri observed, watching the activity around their home. For the better, Ryan added, drawing her closer as they turned to walk back toward the outpost. Their outpost, the place between worlds where their future would unfold neither fully of the sky nor fully of the forest, but something new and hopeful, like the life growing between them.